Hello guys, gals, and everything in between. Mavaka Guy here with another Mavaka Guy exclusive. Well, as you can see that they have released 30 seconds of video from their cell phone of Bryer and Cam saying their last will and testament and their goodbyes. It is going to be an exclusive. It's going to be posted here. As soon as the family releases the video to the public, everyone will be able to see it. The RCMP is holding a lot more than just the 30 seconds. So far, they have just given the 30 seconds to the parents of the two BC suspects. For now, I'm going to read you the comments of people, what they're thinking, the questions they have, the comments they have. And as usual, to all my new subscribers, I appreciate each and every one of you. For all the newcomers that are on here, basically what I do is talk about cases, read people's comments, use it more like a podcast than a video. You could just lay back, listen to this, and when we're done, give me your comments, suggestions, and opinions down below, good or bad. I would appreciate a like as well. And for all the people that haven't subscribed yet, please do so. You will be notified each and every time I get a new video made. And there's going to be quite a few coming up with Bryer and Cam, especially with this new video being released. First comment was, only 30 seconds of the video were released. We don't know what else they said or how long the video was. It was possible the rest of the video contains a confession, which is why it wasn't released, because it's still being processed as evidence. Reply to that is, you're right, but what about the killing of the professor, the one we know the most about? Makes you think they feel remorse? If they felt remorse after the first two murders, would they have killed the kindly professor so viciously? If they feel sorry at all, which I doubt, it's for themselves. But leaving the body on the side of the road like garbage just to steal his car doesn't seem remorseful. It was purposefully cruel. You are a kind person who wants them to be redeemable and fixable. Not everyone can be fixed. Not every death is preventable. I hope I'm wrong. One of the original comments was, weird how this case always seems to have no new info for days. Then all of a sudden a bust of new info. There was the York Landing sighting, real or not, then nothing. Then the boat, a few days later the personal items, the RCMP conference regarding those items, then the bodies. Reply, that's why, as to paraphrase Michael Corleone, who was in The Godfather, just when I thought it was out, it pulls me back in. Every time I think there's going to be a definite lull and no fresh revelations, a bombshell or two is sure to drop. Question about firearms licensing and whatnot in Canada. The original post was, how long is the firearms safety course in Canada? I sat through an all-day firearms safety class on a Saturday several years ago here in the US, where I lived to get a hunting license that I never used. Is it a multi-day affair or something that can be done in a weekend in Canada? In case you haven't heard, they were both suicide by self-inflicted gunshot wounds. So I guess the main topic is, how did they get the guns, who got the guns, did they have a license, etc. Reply, the PAL safety course is usually 2 days for unrestricted. It includes a hands-on section. In my area, it's 2 8-hour days. Then a test that needs 80%, might be 85%, to consider it passed. Then you can fill out and send away your application, once the course instructor fills out their portion of it. It's another full day of instruction if you want to upgrade to restricted, RPAL, and new set of forms. In order to go hunting, you must take a core course. Around here, that's offered over a span of 2 to 5 days and also has a test that needs 80% or better to pass. Once you get your core number, you can get your hunter ID number and then buy hunting licenses and tags. Reply, okay, thank you. That wouldn't be too onerous for those two to arrange. I think if Bryer wanted to get his too, I'd still be quite surprised if it were revealed it wasn't Cam with the PAL though, the PAL. I guess that's the acquired license. Well, my spouse said classes in Victoria here are done at the Harley-Davidson shop out in Langford. Not sure this is current info as he looked into this a couple years ago. Maybe B and K wanted to feel like big boys. I have to wonder if they didn't kill the guy who got them out of the mud because he seemed cool and like a big boy with a big truck and all. I'm being sarcastic a bit, lol. I think they may have confessed in that final video without expressing remorse. My opinion only. Here comes a couple more questions about the guns and the replies. Me too. One hunting rifle and maybe 2 handguns. I'm blown away that it was probably done legally as well. I'm not sure why I'm surprised if it actually is legal. Just seems so easy to go get, I suppose. Well, so much for all our theories about the shady underground world of Vancouver Island gun buying. Reply. Literally none of us ever assumed they were purchased legally this entire time. I guess Cam did seem outwardly normal though. But like, wow, if this witness account is accurate, really wasn't expecting that. In reply to the safety course, which is the 80-85% passing rate. Oh, I hadn't realized there would be a test. Again, I'm sure several of you Canadians have kindly explained this to us a bunch of times, but I never paid too much attention before, lol. Thank you for this great explanation. Regarding the cell phone video recording, the article in the Star says they used the cell phone to record the message. Other articles have misquoted the Star article and said their cell phones. My assumption would be that it was not a known cell phone of either BS or KM, but a pay-as-you-go burner phone, track phone. As was discussed in previous threads, they would have been able to make calls and connect to the web anonymously with such a phone, and not be tracked on their journey, correct? There was talk of the ease of obtaining one without necessarily showing ID. Not that there is obvious evidence that they were online, but they could have accessed maps, checked the news, etc. as needed. I think in some gas stations you can buy a throwaway phone. I don't know if that's still around, but they used to have that years ago. You can go to like a Petro-Canada and buy a cell phone and basically just use it to do whatever and then just toss it. Once again, I am getting these comments and replies from people on Web Sleuths, a crime website. I don't post on there anymore because, as I explained in one of my other videos, my girlfriend and I were posting some posts regarding a missing child in one of the threads. And we were suggesting that the parents might have something to do with it, and we were quickly removed from the website. Therefore, I am not going to sign back on to the website. I'm just going to read the comments from there. As far as I know, a forum is free speech and should be also allowed to read from. So I really don't understand what the issues were with Web Sleuths. But again, I am taking the information, the comments from there. So let's continue. Yeah, I was kind of thinking a burner phone too. Okay, so the one about the killing of the professor, why would they do it if you think they feel remorse? I agree. Sounds so self-indulgent, and even that the words last will and testament, which I bet B&K actually said in the video, sounds melodramatic. Woe is me and kind of ridiculous. These two were living in their own sad little dream world, I'm thinking, oblivious to other people. I don't know if they felt remorse. I'm not clairvoyant. I said that I think they felt regret. That is a different thing. It could be regret that they hurt people, or just regret that they ruined their lives for no reason. I definitely think this was easily preventable given the amount of signs that were overlooked and the research I've done on violence and how to stop it. As I've said, I don't think anyone will ever be able to convince me otherwise. Sorry, even if someone is a sociopath, which I don't think they were for reasons which I have already described. Most sociopaths are not killers, and there are ways to push them into a pro-social direction. To the comment about the Instagram post with Bryer, I assume that means they would check social media. I'm not entirely sure. Officially, they won't say if they do or not. I think because using social media to vet anyone is a gray area because of privacy laws. I do know earlier this year there was an RCMP public job posting for a position within the RCMP, and the job duties were to be completely online, as engrossing oneself in social media and various sites where firearms are the main subject. It paid darn well, too. So I never posted this before because I thought it might sound creepy. But the first thing I noticed about the infamous pic of Bryer, proudly posing with his airsoft rifle, is he seemed to be maintaining proper trigger discipline. He's not resting his finger on the trigger. Might be something he either picked up in a firearms safety course or that Cam would have taught him, if he's the one who had the course. In my experience, people who have no training rest their fingers on the trigger mindlessly, which is a real safety hazard. Somebody typed in 1 hunting rifle and maybe 2 handguns. Reply: the handguns are harder to purchase, especially the first one. They need an upgrade to the PAL to become an R-PAL. You also need to provide proof that you are a current member of a sanctioned range. You need to provide the address of where that handgun will be kept. The CFO will issue an ATT, authorization to transport, once they are sure all requirements are being met. Until the shop owner sees or receives that ATT, specific to each individual firearm, they will not let you take a restricted firearm. In reply to the Bryer photo of him holding the airsoft rifle, good observation. Too bad they didn't take a wilderness hunting adventure. Sad thing is, these two had their whole lives to acquire some skills to use in the right direction. Unfortunately, they took victims with them on their supposed suicide mission. I don't know if this has already been discussed, but would either of them been able to do this alone? Maybe if the families were more clued into their toxic relationship and separated them, none of this would have happened. I don't see them as cooperating with treatment, but neither one on his own would have been capable of carrying this out. Personal opinion, I don't agree with that. And there's another one talking about the licensing again. You'd probably appreciate the fact that every day each and every PAL holder is running through the system to double check that they are still eligible to hold their PAL. Basically, if you have a PAL, when your name comes up as a result of absolute interaction, you will be flagged and a member will decide if anything needs to be looked into by a local CFO or not. For example, a speeding ticket might get your name flagged, but nothing will happen to your PAL as a result. If your name gets flagged as a result of an altercation that day, then RCMP or CFO might be contacting you. Assuming the report of the gun store purchase is actually true, that leaves another conundrum. They were stopped and searched at the Split Lake alcohol checkpoint. How on earth can they get through a search if they had guns? I'm assuming the PAL holder could just flash his PAL, no big deal, but surely officers would have mentioned the guns in their recounts of the incident. Another reply: I doubt it. I think, this is the reply to the one who's saying maybe if they were split up and blah, blah, blah. I doubt it. I think their relationship was a key part of it because they had an us against the world dynamic. I imagine they saw it kind of like the militia Bryer talked about, but with just 2 people in it. I don't think either of them would have done it without their negative energy feeding off each other. However, their families probably saw their friendship as a positive thing. If your kid doesn't have a lot of friends, but they have one really close friend that they've been friends with for over a decade, separating them is the last thing you would think of. Original post was, what the phone is actually doing is spying on your movements and logging them, then transmitting them after airplane mode is off, not while it's on. Reply: what is overlooked in these kinds of discussions is that the GPS data is passive. It's a weak radio signal from a satellite network, so your phone can receive that signal even if not connected to the network. Example, in an area of no coverage. The modern phone uses both GPS and the cellular tower network for more accurate location data, but especially with cache maps, you can still get some decent location function passively. Your phone has multiple radios: Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular, NFC, GPS. It seems airplane mode does not switch off GPS in newer phones. GPS is receive only, so that makes sense. The recovery of the phone likely reveals location data, even when the offenders were being forensically aware. Again, the splitting up reply. I don't think anyone except family members really has enough knowledge of either one to know the answer, and I assume that question is something that family members will be asking themselves and second-guessing every decision they ever made for a good many years to come. The reply to the report of the gun store purchase: I think they took the time to hide them. Also, my understanding is they were not searched. They were stopped and questioned, and constables looked in but didn't actually physically search the vehicle. One of the weirder details I ever read in those whole weird stew of a case was that they drove through the checkpoint slowly and then stopped some point ahead. On the surface, it sounds like the exact opposite of what two teenage yahoos would do on a murder spree. But I think they realized they were going to have to stop and decide it was better to miss the checkpoint and quickly hide the most incriminating stuff, but not obviously blow past it quickly and not stop. Then they could just keep apologizing and plead ignorance after the constables caught up with them after they had stopped and hid whatever. I doubt it would have stood up to a search. I suspect there may have been 2 more victims if the constables had actually searched the vehicles rather than just giving them the once-over. Wish more of these people who want to commit suicide but want to know what it feels like to kill others first would try it the other way around for once. There's nothing more angering than people who must take others out with them. If BS and KM would have left out the murder part of their little adventure, they wouldn't be more than a blip on the local news cycle, if that, since media doesn't always report on suicides. Another reply to the what if they did it alone? I don't think it's a matter of either of them being capable of carrying it out on their own. This took no special skill and required only a vehicle and a weapon. I think it's a matter of this never happening if these two weren't together in the first place. This probably started as a fantasy, and by bouncing ideas off one another, they came up with a tentative plan. So alone, the one who came up with his fantasy first might have just killed himself, or done nothing at all. The other probably wouldn't have considered it to begin with. Together they were a toxic mix. I like how some people really think that they know exactly the minds of these two. It's the new thing. People who would have otherwise killed themselves decide to take their rage and frustration out on the world first. They are inspired by the acts of others, especially as far as mass shootings events go. These crimes aren't that, but these guys seem to share a similar psychological profile. Original post. Yeah, I'm wondering if they were multiple shopping trips and only one had a witness, or maybe one was borrowed, taken without permission from someone else to go with the purchased one. I'm leaning toward both were purchased legally. May have even been purchased during the same trip. I don't know if that is allowable under Canadian law, but there's no guarantee the witness observed the entire exchange. Could the buyer have said, "Great, I'll take 2," or would that have looked suspicious if only one of them had their pal? I also am ignorant of the gun buying laws in Canada. We'll read one more page, see if there's any more update on the videos, and then we'll call it a day until we get that hold of that video, which will be posted here. Original post. If Cam had actually been working at Walmart for several months, as we speculated, he would have money, or maybe money he got from graduating. Or sometimes young people have some money saved up over the years from birthday, Christmas presents. Reply. Was Walmart their first employer? If not, they may have had summer jobs for the past couple of years. Original post. I've wondered if the delay was more on being unsure whether it was first or second degree murder, but that's just an uneducated guess. Reply. Could be, I guess. It just seems odd because in the one press conference they even said that there wasn't enough for Crown to follow through with charges. But in that same press conference, they also said they had substantial evidence to link both crimes. So what is this substantial evidence they already had, and why wasn't it enough for charges? Just thinking with my fingertips again, really. Talking about a thriving market for buying guns out west. Original post. There's a very good question about ballistics. Perhaps RCMP have more evidence for Mr. Dyke crime scene, tire tracks from Cam's Dodge, spent casings, etc., than CD and LF scene. China D. San Lucas Fowler, that is. Maybe the suspects got sloppy when they burned the truck. Tire tracks maybe, but as I said, if they have to wait for ballistics to match to charge for Lucas in China, they would have had to wait for a match on ballistics if they were casings near Leonard as well. Unless they just left one gun laying around there, but I am pretty sure we would have heard about that. The media would have eaten that right up. ETA. Would tire tracks be enough even to charge them? How do they prove that they didn't just stop there for a bathroom break? Not saying that's what they did. I do think they killed Leonard. Just asking the questions that pop up. If the suspects didn't leave casings at China and Lucas's scene, probably more difficult for ballistics. RCMP must have a lot more evidence from Leonard Dick's scene, otherwise they would not have charged suspects. My opinion only. But the two had Leonard Dick's RAV4. I think that is the difference and made it easier to lay charges. It's pretty easy to place them at the scene since they were later seen driving it more than once and it was found burned in Manitoba. I think the RCMP was waiting on DNA test results after processing the van. Even if they were able to prove the truck and camper was at the murder scene at some point during the night, it'd be necessary to prove that both K and B were present. As the van was older and pre-owned, collecting and analyzing DNA could be a labor-intensive process. Canada does not outsource DNA testing unlike the US. The murder of Leonard Dick, other than his body, no vehicle or camping setup was at the murder scene, so processing crime scene evidence was less complex. Possibly tire tracks and shoe prints, plus a stolen vehicle was enough to support probable cause. One murder charge was enough to support the arrest of the two from out of province. It's typical to see one charge laid and other charges follow, even after the initial arrest. Police never name suspects prior to formal charges being filed with the court unless there is strong evidence already in place. Remember, guys, I would appreciate a subscribe as we go along. Always happy to join and get new members on board. The original post was, but the two had LD's RAV4. I think there is a difference and it made it easier to lay charges. It's pretty easy to place them at the scene since they were later seen driving it more than once and it was found burned in Manitoba. Yeah, this is the reply. Yeah, and that is what I have said from the beginning. The RAV4 was what they were going for on the charges. However, if that is all they had, what is the substantial evidence they had to link both crimes? Tire tracks is not substantial, in my opinion. Okay, I would be very reluctant to come to any of those conclusions. The RCMP needed the Crown to charge the suspects very quickly in order to set up the Canada-wide arrest warrant and manhunt while the suspects were at large. Therefore, the original charge of murder was put in place post-haste. Once the Canada-wide warrant was in place, there was no need to post the additional murder charges until after the suspects were apprehended. Since the suspects were found dead, there will be no additional murder charges. So it's not likely because the RCMP didn't have evidence to support murder charges, but rather that it's for the prosaic reasons that there was and is no clock drop urgency. Although K and B couldn't be in two places at the same time, it will be interesting to follow this in the media. This was two bodies found near Ashcroft, confirmed to be missing men from Surrey. A reply was, although K and B couldn't be in two places at the same time, it will be interesting to follow this in the media. Collectively, lots of missing people across great distances in relatively short and similar time span. Even though their disappearance took place the same week that the three homicides linked to suspects Cam McLeod and Bryer Schmegelsky were being investigated in northern BC, RCMP told CTV News at the time that the cases were not connected. Anyone with more information is asked to contact the SED MCU tip line at 1-877-987-8477 or Crime Stoppers to remain anonymous. I have male relatives with arsenals bequeathed them by other male relatives, both dead and alive, usually not a girl thing, none for sale, and all are destined for younger family members. Some are registered, others not, but I'm told that they're working on it. The reply to the the two of them having LD's RAV4. And the Crown was in a position of having to lay at least one charge ASAP, or police in Manitoba wouldn't have cause to arrest K&B and return them to BC, even in the unlikely event the two voluntarily gave themselves up. Yes, that's right. It would have been far faster to get the evidence and charges in order for the single murder than for the double murder, so it makes sense that they followed the fastest route. Yeah, I get what you are saying. What amounts to substantial? That I don't know. Haha. I agree that tire tracks wouldn't be enough. The only thing I can think of is ballistics, matching the bullets, casings, guns. It seems hard to believe that they weren't able to do that and charge them before they were found dead. Just my opinion. Then the death by suicide of K&B was revealed. BC RCMP said they were making no further comment until the investigation was concluded. If that occurs within 2 weeks, as was reported yesterday, hopefully we'll learn all the answers soon. Is there an advantage to charging suspects with all possible charges as quickly as possible during an active manhunt? The RCMP had no way of knowing they would be found dead, but I'm certain they hoped the two might willingly surrender. One formal murder charge is less heat than 3, if that would have made a difference, but of course it did not. By the way, random question I thought of. Do you guys think the York Landing sighting was a deliberately false lead that the RCMP had self-orchestrated, in case Cam and Bryer had access to a radio or something, in order to make them think the search effort wasn't as focused on Gillum so that they might slip up and be caught? Or am I reading into it too much? We don't even know what we don't know, you know? K&B might have left something at the LD scene that tied them to the murder, like maybe a phone with a recorded message saying, "We did it." Whatever it is, I'm certain it is more than just K&B were driving the RAV4. That is possibly proof they stole a RAV, but it is definitely proof they were driving a stolen vehicle. Driving a stolen car, even stealing a car, then driving it, is in no way evidence of a murder. The RCMP have more information than we do, and at this point I wouldn't be surprised if the sequence, means, and motivations of the forthcoming report is right out of left field. The reply to the random question of the RCMP saying they're pulling out. I actually toyed with that idea too for a bit. If not hoping that the two would hear about it on the radio, at the very least by drawing searchers away so it was quieter around the Gillum area for a bit. But if this was some sort of planned exercise, I would think the RCMP would have said something as soon as the bodies were found, because it really made the indigenous watch group look incompetent and basically like glory seekers. And the RCMP wording at the time along the lines of "no evidence to substantiate the sighting" would seem harsh if it was a clever ploy. The RCMP have a terrible track record when it comes to relations with indigenous people and groups in Canada, and I don't think they would want to add that bad blood. Another page has come out. Let's read it. I'm not sure. The thought had occurred to me also, but I also think that the RCMP may have been trying to keep the suspects contained in the bush by holding them there with dogs and armed officers. The RCMP never completely moved out of Gillum, even during the York Landing search. They probably left forensic evidence everywhere. Question from one post here is, has it been determined that the suicides were committed with rifles and not handguns? If so, seems I missed that detail. In reply to the random question about the RCMP pulling out again. Interesting thought, but that would mean putting the reputation of the Bear Clan in jeopardy. I actually think it might have been a couple local kids messing with everyone. Maybe they didn't realize the seriousness of it. Who knows? Wasn't there an early article stating that the two had left PA with plenty of cash? I'm paraphrasing and don't remember the exact wording, but the implication was there in several articles. AS was generous with BS, and he may have done so out of love or tried to assuage his own guilt for not being there for B, or perhaps both. So he may have coughed up some cash. They're talking about the father of Bryer. And perhaps Kay's family gave him some cash too. But my point here is that the fact that they left town with plenty of cash was known by someone close to the two. Who knew this? And how? Rhetorical question. It seems that it is the kind of info that the families would be privy to, since they likely contributed, at the very least. A.S., again, Bryer's dad, could very well have provided B.S. with cash on an ongoing basis. Cam's family may have done the same. Both families could have funded at least part of their trip. If either or both were getting cash from their families, they could have easily have pooled their resources to purchase a gun or guns, legally or otherwise. I'm waiting patiently for the investigative results to be released. Alright, so a couple more questions about the guns, but we are still waiting for that video to be released. At least 30 seconds of it will be released, should be hopefully within a day. As soon as it is released, make sure you subscribe to the channel, as I will post it as soon as it's available for all of you to enjoy. You will see it here first. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. I will be back with plenty more on this case and many other cases. At the very least, also, when you do subscribe, hit that bell icon. You will be notified as soon as the video is released. Alright guys, gals, and everything in between, this is Mavakaga. Wishing you all a great day, great evening, great morning, wherever you may be around the world. But for now, you know what's coming. I'm out.